Have you ever wondered why it is that Paul says that the law is good, and then for the rest of the book of Galatians, he seems to say that we're not under the law, and everybody seems to translate that as law equals bad? Let's look at Sinai. God comes down on Sinai. The whole house of Israel is before him, and he starts talking to these people. And the response of the entirety of the house of Israel, hearing God speaking, like actually the voice is speaking to them, their response is to be afraid. And they tell Moses, you go talk to God. We're going to stay back here. We're going to hang out. We're going to do whatever he says. We'll be his people, but you go talk. We don't want to do that. So what happens from there? Well, Moses goes up. He receives the 10 commandments. He comes down and he sees them all dancing around a golden calf. What happened? The people are down at the bottom for 40 days. They're seeing nothing's going on. Where in the heck did this guy go? He hasn't eaten for 40 days. Clearly, he went up into the smoke. Nobody can survive that. He's probably dead. This was not an illogical thing for the Israelites to think. He probably was dead. I mean, would you think that he was alive after over 4 weeks worth of just, where's he at? What would you think? So you come to Moses coming down, and they built the calf. Now, understand, this is something that happens consistently throughout the Old Testament, that when the house of Israel starts to think to themselves, something's wrong, they start to try to fix the problem themselves. And when they start to try to fix the problem themselves, they build golden calves. They sacrifice to Baal. They sacrifice to the other gods. They go whoring according to other wording in the Bible. This is what happens. People who experience God, who have some sort of something happens to create a disunion where God was speaking directly to them. Now there's something in the middle, whether it's Moses, whether it's sin, whether it's the wrong mindsets, whether it's that we came to a conclusion that is not true, that we just want to guard and keep, but it's not even true and it's leading us away from Jesus. Whatever it is that's being a barrier between you and God, whatever it is, when that barrier is causing for you to have doubt, the human response is typically, like with what Adam and Eve did, to hide and to clothe themselves with fig leaves. At Sinai, they created a golden calf and they said, this is your God, right? These are who brought you out of Egypt. We look at this and we mock it. This is normal human behavior. This is normal human behavior. So Paul comes down from Sinai, and Moses comes down from Sinai. He sees the house of Israel. He breaks the 10 commandments, has to go back up to receive the 10 commandments. What happens after Exodus? Leviticus. Leviticus is the law, right? Or I guess the whole first 5 books of the Torah, those are the law. But Leviticus is really what we think about, that in Deuteronomy when we think of law, right? So I think that what happened was, you have the entirety of the house of Israel who see God, who hear God, and who decide that they want a spokesman instead of a relationship directly. And so God says, well, if you're going to do it this way, here's my expectation. And so he gives these laws not as an oppressive force, but as here's how to have relationship with me at a distance then. Jump forward to Paul. Paul says the law is good. Why? Because God created the law, in my opinion, to say, here's how you have a relationship with me underneath the boundary that you yourself set. So it's good. But we're not under law. Why? Because we don't have Moses as a mediator. We have God himself, Christ, as a mediator. We have direct access to God. So law in this, concept is not going to mean a book of the Bible, and that means we shouldn't read Leviticus. Instead, this would suggest that law is any fig leaf that we put upon ourselves to try to cover ourselves instead of accepting the sacrifice that God gave. Instead of being able to be introspective and look at ourselves and to identify where we need healing and to work through it with Christ and have him as our first and foremost in between us, me and God. As soon as I put a pastor on the podium, as soon as I put my career on the podium, as soon as I put some sort of a habit that I know I need to let go, that I'm not letting go on the podium, as soon as there's anything else, my own interpretation of the Bible instead of following Jesus. And this is the greatest part of the Gospels, is that every time I think that I understand it, I read Jesus and I'm like, I have no clue. It keeps me following a person instead of a passage. I'll put it in that way. Whatever it is that might be a barrier between you and God, that you've made into your Moses to stand between you and God so that you can hear God and understand God, whatever it is that you might have done with that, that is what is law. And we're not underneath of that. So you have freedom, but understand, you have to be diligent to walk in your freedom. If you exchange your freedom for another Moses, you're no longer in freedom, even if you say you're in Christ. And I think that that's what's going on in the book of Galatians.